Delicioso day. Delicioso day.
Good morning, everyone. Good afternoon, and perhaps even good evening. It is wonderful to see you. Thank you so much for dropping by this exciting Daz Pro Artist series stream, in which I'm very, very happy to have a wonderful special guest on the show today, which is, of course, Mr. Colm Jackson, live from, whoops, that's not Mr. Colm Jackson. That is Mr. Colm Jackson, live from Ireland. Wonderful to see you, Colm. How you doing?
Hi, everybody. Hi, Jay. Good to see you.
Do you know, I hear a bit of an echo. That could well be me.
I can try turning original sound on. Is that any better?
No, I think that is me, because we didn't have that before during testing, but now we have it. Can anyone else in the audience hear an echo, or is it just me? Let's have a quick nosy. Reverb. Robert says there's a reverb. So, let me see, what did I do wrong then that wasn't like that before? Do you know, it could well be. Am I listening to something like that here? No, that's not it. So sorry, need to do some fact finding. Let's try again. Say something, Colm. See what happens.
Hello, hello. Testing. 1, 2, 3, 4.
See, and the reverb is magically gone.
Yay.
So one extra button that I shouldn't have pressed. One of those things. Well, I'm glad it's working now. So tell you what, we have 57 viewers in the audience. I just want to say thank you so much, everyone who's here.
Thank you.
X201, Ascania, Yoshi is here, CubeWatt, Mr. Dragonade, Miss Julia, and Mr. Brian are my moderators today, which is awesome. Robert, thank you for the reverb thing. Patrick Holdeman, you just swiped in, you just made it. Ascania, Mad Dog is here. This is wonderful. Design Photo, you are all so much appreciated that you're here. Anyone else who I've forgotten to shout out, I do apologize.
Well, hello to everybody, and it's great that you've come along. Really appreciate it.
Colm doesn't have the chat in front of him, so I'm going to relay some of your questions over to him and we'll bring it into the conversation. Let me show you what we're going to be doing today. It'll be an interesting one because I've got some, there we go. I've got some renders I can show you that are all made with something that Colm has designed, which is called Render Studio. This is one of the portraits that you can make with it absolutely in minutes, and what usually would take you hours to get the lighting detailed set up. So we're going to talk about Render Studio and why Colm made it and what you can do with it. We're also going to talk jargon a little bit about when it comes to lighting, because there's things like this one here, which you could regard as a low-key image. So we're going to talk about what that actually means. There's also conversely something that is called a high-key image. That is what this would look like, and we're going to talk about how to make these things happen. Colm is going to use this character here from a bundle which is called the Joanna Warrior Bundle, and we're going to talk literally off the cuff what it means to do good lighting and how Colm actually designed these products, and also more importantly why he designed them. So maybe we'll start there, Colm. Tell us a little bit about yourself and how Render Studio came to be.
There's a little thing, I don't know whether the audience can see it. There's part of your screen in front of my face there,
Oops.
Jay. I don't.
Sorry.
Yeah, there we go.
Totally taking that away.
How Render Studio came to be? Well, that goes back a long time. It was back in the poser days when the View renderer was a much better renderer than the poser renderer.
View, you say?
Yeah, View. Yeah. So my idea at the time, and this was nothing to do with making products or anything, it was just so as I could render as if in a photo studio in View. I designed a complete lighting rig in View with an infinity cove that completely ignored the fact that the product was meant to design landscapes.
For landscapes, right.
Eventually it had something like 20 or 30 different light setups in it. And I just thought, wow, this is a product, you know.
How did you work with it then? Did you make the character in Poser and then send it over to View?
You would have to export the character from Poser as an OBJ, and it's so long ago, I can't remember how the textures and everything came in, but I think they came in automatically.
It's one of those things, and it's not dissimilar to the things that we do today with all these bridges, where you say, hey, Blender's awesome for rendering. Some people want to use that for rendering, but posing and dressing the character up, that's still something that is very good, very well done in Daz Studio. So you want to do that, press a button, off and go render in wherever you want. So
that's pretty much what you did, only it was manual. But it would come in and the eyes wouldn't look right, so you'd have to mess with them and things like that. But I got pretty good results from it, and that was the very, very, very first version of Render Studio. And then I did a couple of versions of it for Poser, and I've since done 3 main versions of it for Daz Studio with quite a few different subsidiary versions.
Right.
Like High Key Studio, HDR, something. Pro HDR Studio was one of them. And then there's an HDRI Studio. That there's quite a few different subsidiary ones, but there's 3 main versions. Render Studio 1, which, funny enough, was started within the first week that I was learning Daz Studio.
Oh, wow.
So
that goes back.
It was a hit or miss situation. And, when I look back at it now, it still works perfectly well, and it's still incredibly valid. But there are things that I would do differently, set up differently now. But then I went on to Render Studio 2 a couple of years later, which included volumetrics.
Right. Yes, I just picked that one up. It's a good one. It's still a good one. It's when we talk about volumetrics, like in Daz Studio 4.20, that might mean something else, but Render Studio volumetrics is still a very cool product, and it uses a different approach to making these God lights, these God rays visible. So very cool.
Yeah. And that was the main focus of that. And then I did a monochrome version of Render Studio, which was one of the biggest influences for me with lighting was the 1940s, well, really from 1920s to 1960s Hollywood portrait lighting.
Right.
Your Greta Garbo and things like that. I
film noir,
absolutely film noir. Yeah, I love that kind of lighting, and that was designed around that. Okay, yeah, it's easy just to render it in black and white, or to bring it into Photoshop and turn it into black and white. But the lights were specifically designed for that kind of Hollywood style lighting,
almost the kind of burnt out effect on one side, and the really harsh
deep shadows. Yeah. And then I went on to an HDRI version of Render Studio, which pretty much just used HDRI maps in the environment, part of the render settings.
So the first 2, then, just to clarify that, the first 2 are the ones that use spotlights in place of the HDRI, and then the one that's actually called Render Studio HDRI, that makes use of those lighting techniques as HDRIs, I suppose. Yeah,
that's right. Yeah, and I designed the HDRI maps and everything myself for them. So it's not just HDRI maps of landscapes and stuff like that. And there are subsidiary lights that come with it to give like rim light effects and things like that.
Oh, and catch lights and eyes and all that.
Catch lights in the eyes. And
this is so cool. I'm looking forward to seeing you put this together from scratch. So most of the Render Studio products, they're kind of designed very modular, aren't they? So that you can, the camera positions are the same, most of them on the products, but then you could do something like grab a light that you like from this and then a backdrop from another, and they kind of work together, don't they?
Well, if you put them all together, there's an incredible amount of tools.
Yes.
There are hundreds of different lights, and there are a lot of different backdrops different ways of setting things. So a lot of the lights were done with controllers, which I'll demonstrate later.
Okay.
Where a controller prop, where you just have an invisible geometry, which is basically placed inside the character's head, which controls the positioning and rotation of the light. So instead of trying to manipulate the light into the right position, you just turn the Y rotate, X rotate
on the controller.
On the controller. So the Y rotate spins it left and right, and the X rotate brings it up and down.
You know, it's this out of the box thinking that is great to see in practice. If sometimes you can make your life really difficult, but then if you see completely different approaches, you go, that's easy. Let's try that. So very cool.
Yeah, because I always found it frustrating trying to, get the lights in the right position. And with this, you can literally just turn a dial and you can see the effect straight away. And you're not going from the top camera to the left camera, trying to see which way it's facing. And, is it actually, or the actual light camera, is it actually pointing at the figure at all? So it's a lot easier when it's attached to a controller prop,
Do you want to? So I'm just keeping half an eye on time. I'd love to hear something, just a little bit of background of how you. So the knowledge that you've put into Render Studio comes from the fact that, and many might not know this, that Colm is of course a photographer. Hence the knowledge of photographic techniques, both in landscape as well as in the studio. Do you want to give us just a quick relationship rundown with how that started?
Yeah, well, I wouldn't call myself a photographer now. I mean, if I use photography, it's purely for Daz Studio. But I started out as a photographer back in the 80s as a rock photographer. Well, I started out as an assistant to a rock photographer, and then I became one myself. And I was very lucky to photograph many famous people at the time, like Ozzy Osbourne and Kylie Minogue, Michael Jackson, Brian Ferry, Leonard Cohen, people like that.
To name a few.
I did, and a lot of them were done in the studio. So I learned a lot about lighting, firsthand in photography studio. And then I worked as an artistic photographer doing kind of fine art photography for about 10 years.
Right.
And then when I came to live in Ireland, I was fascinated by the Irish landscape, all the castles and ruins and things. And I became an Irish landscape photographer for about 5 years, a professional Irish landscape photographer. And I used various techniques, but one of them mainly was I have an infrared camera that just photographs the infrared spectrum, and that makes everything look like a U2 album sleeve, Yeah.
When you say, just a quick recap, you being Irish, now being in Ireland, you've left out the part where you've not been in Ireland, where you been a rock photographer, as in rock bands photographer in America.
No, that was in London.
That was in London. Oh, right, of course.
Yeah, I was born here in Dublin and left here when I was a child, when I was 5 years old, and grew up in Liverpool.
Oh.
And I moved to London when I was a teenager, 17. Became a rock musician. And then did that for about 10 years, and then became a rock photographer. So it was from one end of the camera to the other.
But then also, just to put it into context, that's how you got into the scene. You liked that. You were passionate about music. You were passionate about the scene, and that turned into photography, something else you were passionate about. And now you're turning that into the 3D product. So what I find so refreshing to hear is you are following the passion. So if it was lucrative or not, I don't know. I mean, it must have been. Otherwise, you wouldn't be...
sometimes not. There's always the poor musician or the poor artist. But yeah, I mean, the photography turned into 3D.
Yes. The passion.
You know?
It's the red
Yeah.
thread that I'm seeing there. It's the passion. You were with the passion, and that's defined your career. Be that of being a musician, photographer, or 3D artist. That is fascinating. I really find that is.
I've always seen Daz Studio, and prior to that, Poser, as a virtual photographic studio.
Right.
Yes. I'm not saying everybody should see it like that, but that's how I've always seen it and worked with it. Yeah.
Wonderful.
So
that is so cool.
That's
to hear.
me.
That's you, and hence the Render Studio products. Why don't we have a look at how you put something like that together? If you share your screen, I will put you. I'll make some adjustments here somehow. I think maybe like this. And there we go. Beautiful young lady you have on your desktop there, Colm.
That's my latest release at Daz. Quick plug. Her name is Anya. So she's up there for now, and I didn't deliberately put her up to plug her, but
do you know, it's fascinating. There's basically three things that happen by sheer coincidence right now. And so it's Anya being your desktop background, and she happens to be a new release. Second and third is that Colm's store, both on the Daz store as well as on Renderosity, where Colm also sells, both stores appear to be on sale right now. And Daz, it's a part of the April showers, I think. And on
I think it's
Renderosity,
actually the last day today. I'm not sure.
It is. So I've seen lots of products 50% off. So grab them while you can.
Some of them are over 70%. Some of mine are over 70% off.
Really? You're kidding? That's amazing. Wow. Awesome.
And now's the day to grab them. Yeah. There we go. There's the plug over.
Plug over.
Yeah. Okay. So I've made 4 scenes, and all using the same pose, same model, same clothing, just so as we can see the difference, really, of what they look like in different scenarios.
I like it.
I have the images of them here. This is a straight studio full-length shot. And then we're going to move on to, most probably do this one last. This is an HDRI, and I'm going to quickly demonstrate how to make the figure stand out against the HDRI background. It's not very well lit by the HDRI background, so adding a light and then the depth of field and stuff to make it really pop.
You know, great idea. I've had so many questions about people saying, hey, I'm really confused about lighting, because on one hand, people tell me I should use a HDRI. Other people say I should use scene lights, and it's either or. Neither of them is the look that I'm going for. And I say, well, combine them. And the big eye effect was, oh, you can combine them? And I said, yeah, absolutely. But it's of course not something that is obvious to everyone. So I'm looking forward to that, mixing both, the best of both worlds together.
Yeah, many HDRIs are often too dark, and the ones you download free and things like that. And even if you bump up the brightness or the exposure on them, it tends to burn out the HDRI itself. So right. You often have to add in a light or two. And then, as you mentioned earlier, we're going to go and explore a little bit about high key lighting. High key lighting is basically where the subject is very well lit with minimal shadows. That there's really no dark shadows, but not to the point where it's flat lit. There has to be what in photography you call a little bit of modeling, so you can basically feel the shape and the structure of the figure themselves. This
is something a little bit like fashion catalog lighting, right? They tend to be so flat that it's just about the texture of the clothing almost and how it drapes. So that's almost like a little bit too much high key then. So high key, you say there's a little bit more finesse to it, perhaps.
Yeah, and you can do a lot with high key. I mean, you can do some really nice special effects where the high key light itself, or the main high key lighting itself, basically puts an aura around the figure like a glow, which can be really beautiful if it's done correctly. And then we're going to do, first of all, we're going to do this one, which is Rembrandt lighting.
Ah.
So it's low key lighting, but it's in the style of the artist Rembrandt. So that's why it's called Rembrandt lighting. And I'll explain a little bit about Rembrandt lighting now.
Do you know, just a quick question from Bob. He says, Colm, how much post-work do you do on your renders if you're using Daz Studio as a photo studio? We might see something like that. With last stream, Bob, if you're interested in that, that's still recorded and available on Vimeo if you're a Daz Plus subscriber. Colm was talking us through quite a bit of post-production and how much you can do with it, in terms of principle. But yeah, Colm, how much post-production do you do?
Well, on those ones I've just shown you, they only have contrast and level correction on those four images I just displayed there. But in a promo for a product, the key is to not do so much post-production that you're overriding what the product actually can do or looks like. I find that not all the time, but maybe 7 times out of 10, the raw renders that come out of not just Daz Studio, but any 3D rendering software, they can be a little bit flat. Almost like the raw images that come out of a digital camera, they need to be processed.
Just a tiny bit, just to crisp up the shadows, crisp up the blacks. Yeah, but
you can add. I believe you can add things like special effects to the. For example, you could have a slight lighting flare as a special effect done in post work coming from one side of the image, as long as you're not demonstrating a lighting product. Because that wouldn't be in the lighting product, that was in post work.
Right.
That's the same as something like vignetting or something like that. It's basically just making it look presentable and without distorting what the actual product looks like. It really depends on the image. If it's a full length or mid length render of figure, then you can play around a lot more with bokeh effects and things around the figure and stuff like that. There's things like that you can do. But if you start doing things like putting fake catch lights in the eyes and and stuff like that, then I think you get, especially for a promo render, you're actually cheating a bit,
I agree. I agree. I like when it says, so some promo images make a point of saying there's no post work. Often that what they really mean, there's minimal post work. So post work, a little bit of contrast enhancement, I wouldn't see as post work. Post work, like what you mentioned, put artificial catch lights in the eyes. That's post work. That's post work.
Yeah.
Or putting a different outfit, painting a different outfit onto a character. That's clearly post work. But I wouldn't even see something like a little bit of color correction. If the image is too green and you're making it a little bit warmer, I don't
definitely
see that as post work. That's just a little correction.
I tend to I like more blue tinted lights that are more daylight looking. Like this light here, it's very warm. The main light in this, what we're looking at now, is very warm, but I would possibly decide to make that a little bit more daylight looking by changing the color temperature in post work.
Right.
Something like that.
Just a little cooler.
But it's not distorting what the actual. This isn't my product anyway, but
good point. This is from the Joanna bundle, isn't it? This one here.
It is. This is by.
I forgot as well.
I've got it here. Just give me a second. It is Joanna by Malwen.
That could be
Maelwenn, and the hair is the Balua hair.
Right.
By Ergu.
Nice hair.
And the outfit is the Warrior Queen outfit version 1 by, I can't pronounce this, FJAA 3D, Fajaa 3D. I don't know how, if you're supposed to say it like that. But in the bundle, there are 2 Warrior Queen outfits. There's a version 1 and a version 2. I only used version 1. And there's the Judah Weapons collection by Britek, and the Scalarog original creature with saddlery and poses by Sixus One.
He looks good. That bundle, that is currently on 60% off, and Brian's just posted a link. Thanks, Brian. Very good.
I think I might have it up here, actually. Do I? There. Yeah.
And also, Duval says she needs freckles, quite clearly. So there is that.
Yeah, well, I tend to do freckles on my characters, but
yes, like
yeah.
on Anya, that was freckles overkill. I think I read that.
I'm not sure if they're actually freckles. I think it's dirt.
Oh, it's dirt,
Yeah.
right?
It's dirt. That's
It's
dirt.
Do you know, she looks very much like, I was playing a computer game this morning, which was Horizon Zero Dawn, and they have a beautiful, very young kind of warrior tribal main character there, Aloy, and she looks very much like this, very similar. You'd love this game.
I like my characters to be quite dirty, like especially if they're, fantasy characters or mythological goddesses or something. They've been in a battle, they've been trudging through the mud.
Exactly. That's
Slaying
exactly
their
what happens in the
foes,
video game. She's basically out and about and going through rivers and prairie all the time. So
Yeah. So I think that's additional dirt you can add. Now it's not, you can have it without the dirt as well.
is it is the dirt, does that come with Anya?
Yeah.
Cool. Okay.
Yeah. But she also comes without dirt.
Mm-hmm. What
So-
hair did you use? Just to finish off the Anya discussion, because that is beautiful as well. Do you remember?
No.
If you don't worry about it. You can email it to me later. That's cool.
It might actually be 2 hairs.
Ah,
I often combine 2 hairstyles, especially if
Another
they're
trick.
long hair. Yeah. Like, you might like the hair in one, and yet another one might have this braid. So you use 2, one on top of the other,
Melissa reckons this might be a Winfield hair by the looks of it. Yes, well
I
spotted, the braid, very good.
think it might well be. Yeah,
Winfield
it might
hair.
well be.
If you ever have a doubt about should I buy this Winfield hair or not, there shouldn't be any doubt. You should go and buy
Oh,
it.
any of Winfield's hairs. I don't know whether Winfield is male or female, but they make great hair.
Unbelievable, yeah. Some
Yeah,
of my favorite, yeah.
Yeah, my favorite would be that, and Aprilish,
Yes.
and Lindy.
Yes, absolutely.
Yeah.
Biscuits also. There's
Biscuits,
some
biscuits.
hairs, they're just there. You can do so much with hair, and we're not actually
Yeah.
here to talk about hair. I'm so sorry. Let's
No,
bring it back to
don't
lighting.
worry. Okay, so we were talking about Rembrandt lighting.
Yes.
So I've got some examples here of Rembrandt lighting, and if anyone can spot the similarity, you'll get it by the end anyway. So these are just images I downloaded today from Google. So there's a key element in Rembrandt lighting, and if anybody can see it, shout out.
It looks to me as if, and I'm not an expert on Rembrandt lighting, but since, I'm the only one you can hear, I thought maybe I'll shout this out. It looks to me as if this is primarily a single light source setup. Is that correct?
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
It doesn't seem to be like a...
Pretty much. I mean, the main, I mean, you can get away with just, we'll go through that in a minute, but a single light source. But the trick is this the right image? It's pointing to it there.
Is that him?
See this triangle of light here?
Under the eye.
Yeah. Now, it's not just a triangle of light. The cheek shadow here meets the nose shadow. There's no gap.
Ah, yes. The shadow goes through.
Yeah. So you get this pure triangle. There's an image here I downloaded that explains it. So you have the main light on one side of the face. This is also called a glancing light, by the way.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, so it's not directly on the figure. It's actually the edge of the light beam that is pretty much hitting the figure. The eye is illuminated with a small triangle of light on the cheek. So we see that there, right? and the nose shadow connects with the cheek shadow to create the triangle of light on the upper cheek.
That.
Yeah. So
Cool.
when you don't have that connection, you see a very distinct nose shadow.
Yes, indeed. Yes,
But
you would
when
be.
you do have the connection, it becomes indistinct, and it creates your focus. Instead of focusing on the distinct nose shadow, you focus on the eye.
Dang.
Yeah. So that's my take on it anyway. So
Thank you
here,
so much
if
for
we
the
get rid of
explanation.
these,
That's just so cool. And we have it recreated there, yeah.
we have the triangle of light here, and I was going to point with my finger thinking everybody can see me.
Do you know, you can always, I can do it for you if you like. You can switch off these yellow flashes under your draw
How do you
settings.
do that?
You open the draw settings tab. If you have it open, looks like you don't have it open.
The what settings?
Draw settings, Windows, tabs.
Oh, draw on the, here in
No,
environment?
it's a separate tab. So
Oh, okay.
under
Window panes,
and then draw settings.
draw settings.
And in here, under editor,
Mm-hmm.
you have general, I believe.
Mm-hmm.
And it's not general, sorry, it's under drawing.
Mm-hmm.
And there is maybe it was under general. It was somewhere under there. I think maybe it's general. Have a look at general again. Bounding box and surface, the first one. If you change that to bounding box under highlight style, bounding box only. And now as you move
I'm going to move that onto there in case we need to change it back.
Now as you move, nothing happens.
Yeah, okay, great. Okay. It's amazing. You find out something new about Daz Studio every day, don't you? So we have this triangle of light here. Now, that is created by, I've called it a soft Rembrandt light here. Okay, so if we look in the top view, let's say, we can see that it's almost this one here. It's almost the side light.
It is.
Right? I mean, basically, the center of the cone is pointing at her ear. So it's really this front half of the cone here that is lighting the subject, right?
What's the height? If you look straight from the front, where in regards to height is that?
Okay, there's the left view.
There we go,
So
like
you can
45,
see
a little bit
quite,
higher than her.
It's quite high. Let's have a look. I need the controller for that. 76 degrees.
Gotcha. So this is, I think, and I don't know if that is accurate or not, but I seem to remember hearing that somewhere, that Rembrandt used to paint in an attic, and the attic had a slightly slanted roof, and there was one window in the attic, and during the sunlight hours, this is the light that he got.
Yeah,
That's
I heard
how,
that too. Yeah.
So his models were kind of naturally illuminated like that, and he loved the style, and that's just his signature, I guess. So interesting.
Yeah. So we turn everything off that is interfering with it. Take off this. I'm sorry, that's a controller. Now you can see it clearer now. Turn off the rim light.
Cool. It's good to see. So in this setup, it's not just one light source. Maybe it was in Rembrandt Studio, but there we go. So we have a little bit of background.
There's one light source.
Gotcha. Yeah.
Now, obviously, Rembrandt Studio would have had light bouncing around and filling in the shadows.
Quite naturally, indeed.
On the dark side, but we don't have that. I mean, I'll show you later how to add in a geometry plane to bounce the light into the shadows. But so that's basically it with the. Now the light itself it's got the spread angle is fairly wide. It's not terribly wide. Now that's the width of the light. And then I believe, I'm not 100% sure what the beam exponent actually means, but I think it's the center beam, how bright that center beam or actually is. and I've adjusted it's a rectangular light, so it's a softbox basically. It's like it's like a photographic softbox light. So it's, I mean, if I change that to a point light,
we'll see very different effects.
It's very different. Or if I change it to a sphere, that's a bit better. Cylinder. Yeah,
interesting.
They're all pretty good, but you see with the rectangle, it's really nice because you can emulate an actual studio light. I assume the sphere light is like a bulb, isn't it?
It is. So the what this changes is the actual geometry of where the light comes from. So in Iray, everything is a mesh light. So you can create a primitive and put an emissive shader on it, but that has disadvantages, as we've recently seen with the Ghostlight product. So what Iray has built in are these light objects, and a spotlight, a point light, they start out as a single pixel of geometry, and that's where the shader, or that's where the light comes from. But you can easily change that, and hence the spotlight and the point light, they're so powerful because you can turn a spotlight both into a softbox or a really strong point that just has super harsh shadows. The larger that geometry is, automatically the softer the shadows are that the light creates. So very
I'm not sure what the measurement here I've got in Daz Studio, but I think the default on the spotlight is 10 on the height and width.
Right. That's a bit smaller, and that gives
that would look a lot different.
Yes.
It's a lot harder, you know.
The smaller you make that rectangle, it's still the same amount of light that comes from the same surface, but because it's much smaller, it now goes and creates these harsher shadows. So
and it's more concentrated,
Exactly. So the larger you make that, you don't really lose light. It's just being spread out on a larger surface, and that then makes shadows softer and softer.
And of course, we were talking about temperature. You know, you can adjust. I've got a graph here.
Could you put the lights tab on the left-hand side? Then our faces are in the way.
Put the lights tab over here. Can you do that?
Yeah, just left click and drag. Yes, perfect. Then we can see a little bit better.
Okie dokie. The color temperature was something that where is it? So in Daz Studio, the default is set to 65,000K, is it?
6,500, yeah.
6,500K, which is basically overcast, which is nice, which is really, really nice color temperature. But the more you, where am I? I'm getting lost here. The more you, where am I? Yeah. So the higher you go on the dial, on the color temperature, Kelvin, the cooler the light gets. And the lower you go, the warmer the light gets. So 6,500, wasn't it?
Mm-hmm.
So that's midway.
Mm-hmm.
Now, just for this particular render, if I was to turn that all the way up, that kind of looks like window light now.
Yes, it's almost, we were discussing this in the beginning, weren't we? This is kind of more your look. This is what you'd like to achieve, less warm.
Yeah. I like that kind of, natural daylight, window light look personally. But I'm going to just put it back to its default for now. So we're talking about controllers now.
Right. Yes.
So let's see, if I hide Genesis, no, I'd have to hide the hair and everything. You can just see the outline of a cube here.
Oh yes.
Which is basically made the opacity invisible. So that is the controller prop. So in order to change the lighting there, instead of selecting the light, I would select the controller prop, and I have this dial here, light rotate. Just let me copy that in case I forget it. So turn that instead of turning the light.
That is a clever way of doing this. With the controller, the dummy object in the center of where the figure is, there's going to be the light parented to it, shining at that. And the moment you turn the parent, the child kind of rotates with it, but you don't have to worry about having the light manually point at a portion of the character. It's just this distance. It's kind of a spring arm, essentially, that you just rotate around from the center. That's clever.
And if you notice there, we've lost the Rembrandt look, and we have this ugly shadow here coming on the nose.
Exactly.
But putting
look how unflattering this is. If you look at the upper lip, and you really accentuate that bit on her face, and how unflattering that is. It's the same light quality. It's the same height of the light, but it's a very different look that she gets. Very good point.
If you put it back, it automatically removes it, and it becomes much more flattering.
It's like a completely different personality on the model, isn't it?
Yeah, and the X rotate will bring the light up and down.
Mm-hmm. That's like doing this with the spring arm now.
Yeah. So
and again, we're losing it, and immediately we have a different.
And then we bring it down. Yeah, and the Z rotate will do stuff as well, but often it's quite ugly. It's kind of more horror lighting now, you know. But yeah, that's why I always put the lights on a controller, and I think about 90% of the lights in all the render studios are all on a controller, or there's the option to have them on a controller or not. So that's the basic light in Rembrandt lighting.
And this is, just to clarify, this is done with Render Studio 1?
I can't remember where.
But one of them that isn't HDRI, essentially, either one or two.
I think this light came from Render Studio Monochrome.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. So, which, as you can see, you don't have to do it in monochrome at all.
Don't have to.
Yeah. And then basically what was added in was which you can't see at the moment, was the Promo Studio Cove, which is an infinity cove, which, you know, a lot of people use now, but when I started doing render studios, they didn't exist in what we were doing.
I remember.
And I always used to use one in the photography studio. In fact, I built one from chicken wire and paper mache. It was about 20 feet wide and about 15 feet tall or something like that. It took me a week sticking all this newspaper on it and then painting it.
It's so funny. I remember that some people who don't have access to an infinity cove, they sometimes take a sphere, make it really large, and then put the bottom of the sphere is where the character stands, and then you carve out a bit of the sphere, like the front, put the character right in the middle, and then that's your infinity cove at the back. Yeah. Normals need to be reoriented because usually a sphere has the normals on the outside.
Yeah.
But it's like a poor man's way of getting, not using a cube, because you always have that edge at the end, or plane where you see horizon not meeting the ground. So it's great. Infinity cove is a really nice idea.
So so I will often use an infinity cove, and one comes with nearly every version of Render Studio. And then there's specular light for the eye highlights.
Oh, yes. That's a separate light that you put in. Excellent.
Now, obviously, the Rembrandt light is almost a side light. So it's not really shining in her eyes. So you're not getting that specular reflection from the Rembrandt light.
Not naturally, anyway, indeed.
They had to be... there's plenty of specular lights in the render studios, but you have to be quite careful when setting these up, because they do still add light to the scene. That's not, even though if you look at it, now it could be something I'm completely missing, but I have it set to specular only. So obviously it's illuminating the specular parts of her skin as well as the eyes. So it's adding luminosity to the rest of her, as opposed to just the highlights in the eyes. So you had to be very careful of how you set it up. For me, I think it was really pretty much trial and error until I got it right. Let's have a look in the top view again and see what that looks like. Now that's a very, very wide spread angle here.
Oh wow! Okay.
So it's a very wide light, and I can't remember for the life of me, but I must have done that for some reason. And again, it's a rectangle. But one of the beauties of that of the specular light is that if you change it to a disc, say for example, the reflection becomes a disc,
a different shape.
So let's create another camera, copy that one.
Yes, and zoom right in so we can see it better. That's a good idea.
Yeah. So this should be a disc now.
Indeed. And you can even go ahead and, if you wanted to have different shapes, you just create different shapes in either from a texture with an opacity map and add that to like a mesh there, or you just create different three-dimensional shapes and make them light up. So you could have a star, or you could have a heart, or whatever you want. So it's just, that's the part of being creative with light.
And another thing with the rectangle is, we have a square here, but we could have a, let's see, let's make that 300. Now we have an elongated rectangle.
Yes, now we have a kind of a strip light.
Yeah, yeah. So, you can do it the other way around as well, so it's vertical. So I mean, it's quite versatile, but these are set up for you ready to use. So you just again have to turn the controller. I find one of the important things to do is to where are we? Head and shoulder camera, is to make sure that the light itself is pretty much coming from a similar direction to the main light. The specular light is coming from. Now, obviously, this is turned more towards her face, because if it was in exactly the same position as the Rembrandt light, we wouldn't see it. But it doesn't look fake. It looks quite realistic, I think.
No, absolutely. And it's also getting, not having that catch light almost means there's something missing. So this really accentuates that little je ne sais quoi in her eyes, doesn't it?
Oh, it brings the eyes to life.
Absolutely.
Totally, Now we put in a background light. Now that's not on a controller. And that's just basically a spotlight. Let's see. There it is. There it is here.
There it is, indeed.
Yeah. Just pointing at the background, and you just play around with the spread angle and the luminous flux and the intensity. The luminous flux being the brightness. The intensity is kind of like more of a fine tuning of the brightness, I find. I'm not sure if that's the right way to describe it, but I could just make that wider or less wide. So, see if I can get it back to where it was now.
There's only so many undo levels, huh?
There we go. Yeah. So the only other thing that's left in this image is the rim light. Now, without the rim light, there's too much shadow going on in this area
Indeed,
here.
this is like almost like a black hole in the scene. That's true.
Yeah. So I just added in a rim light, which is just another spot.
It is just so cool to dissect the scene because it looks such simple light that's primarily coming from one side, and then you see that you need all these little accentuating pieces to really make it come to life and turn it from a flat render into something that's, you know, that's extremely good.
Yeah, yeah, and of course, you know, with all these lights, you can change the colors, the color temperatures, and everything. So, I mean, there's so much more you can actually do. I mean, this is a very straightforward setup as far as what I would do. It's pretty much a photographic studio portrait.
Mm-hmm.
And if we look at this in some of the other cameras that I've created, there's the mid-length view. Now you can see the main focus of the light is around her chest and her head and her left arm. The right side of her body is pretty dark, so it's primarily been set up for the face.
For the yeah,
you know, and that would be in full length, and you wouldn't use lighting like that in full length because the bottom half of her is just not illuminated enough, you know. So that's pretty much Rembrandt lighting.
Amazing. That is really cool to dissect it this way. I really like it. Tux wants to see some of the actual settings per light. I'm thinking, since they are kind of part of the Render Studio product, can you just have a quick look at the product and let us see how the product is constructed in the content library?
Sure.
If you have it
okay.
there we go. Perfect.
Yeah, I do. So the original Render Studio, can you see this? Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, the original Render Studio comes with the Render Studio base here, which consists of an infinity cove, a floor and wall backdrop. So that's a separate two separate planes. It comes with a slew of lights. There are background lights with beam presets.
That's so sweet.
I obviously wasn't into doing tip files then.
So a requirement these days, indeed.
Yeah. I always put tip files in. As I said, this was my very first ever product. There's actually a load of mesh lights.
Look at that.
There's rim lights for mesh lights as well. There's materials for the mesh lights.
For the lights, okay, so you can go and okay.
So these are different color temperatures. You've got candle, clear blue sky, cool white LED, flash, halogen bulbs, incandescent, morning and evening sun, natural white, overcast sky, noonday sun.
Oh, so Tux, did you mean looking at the character through the light source? Is that what you mean? I'm not entirely sure if I understand the question. Let me know if that is what you mean, like looking through the light at the character.
Okay, so there's basically a massive amount of lights in each pack, and Render Studio 2 went on to Atmosphere. It has an atmosphere projector light and an atmosphere dome. So you have to load all that in, and then you can adjust the amount of atmosphere. There's atmosphere presets. They're the props, atmosphere presets, color of the atmosphere, density, volumetric beam size.
Yes, nice.
There's a whole load of gobos there. You can create different lighting effects, patterns.
For me, these products are very much like, I approach them a bit like a video game in which you go and bring a character in and just play around and see what happens. Like I had great fun exploring the infinity cove and the amount of effects that you can put on that. So not just the lights, but also the actual texture on the infinity cove. So there's a ton of that.
Yeah, I mean, this is only one of the render studios, but this is all background stuff.
Wow, yeah.
So
that's like 400 different versions of 400 different characters right there at your fingertips, and it's just so easy to get really cool promos out of this, or really cool looking portraits out of this.
Yeah, so you've pretty much got every studio. So this comes with controller or no controller, so you have a choice.
Ah, okay.
And there's your Rembrandt glancing light. Oh, so that came in Render Studio 2. Sorry, not Render Studio Monochrome.
Oh, okay, that's cool. Good stuff.
Yeah, there's just so much of it. It's hard for me to remember it all, Rim lights.
I'm thinking this is something we could maybe do on a Twitch session together, Colm, that we just go and create, 5 different portraits completely from scratch, no planning, and just go, we want to use this character.
Yeah.
Let's just see what comes out here and just see what happens, I'd love to do that.
Yeah. There's and then there's loads. This is HDRI version of Render Studio. This is great for kind of dystopian cyberpunk. You get these great saturated lights, and there's window light and studio lights. Again, loads of backgrounds and their background colors, background mats. Of course, these look quite harsh in the previews, but when you use depth of field with them,
then it
and things like that,
blurs it more or less. So yeah.
Yeah.
So again, this is kind of those types of things are great for experimentation. Matthew, good question. They are primarily designed for iRay. You might be able to get some results in filament with the Render Studio 3 HDRI. You could try that. I mean, filament it's really not designed for that. Maybe that's a new product for Colm to check out. Render Studio filament. That would be interesting. See if you get into that.
I think I pressed the filament button once and said, "Okay, I'm going back to iRay."
Oh.
But that was just me. That was just me. I'm not saying there's anything wrong with it. I'm just saying that it seemed a little bit too confusing. But it might be worth experimenting with at some point. But if you put all these together, there are hundreds and hundreds of options. You'd really want to take time, studying one at a time,
Don't get overwhelmed. Leave it to something.
Yeah, don't get overwhelmed about it.
You're getting years of good-looking renders out of this.
Yeah, there's a slew of like specular lights for the eyes. All the different shapes are set up, the discs, the rectangles, the squares, and from left and right and everything.
This is what makes working with that so cool, because you can just go and try this, and you think that's not the effect I was after. Try that, and you rather than having to change all these on the parameters themselves, you just go to the one click and go, try that.
A lot of the Render Studios come with preset light setups. So these are the ones. These are the ones I used in the promos.
Oh yes.
So basically, I took the figure out and the clothing and the hair and saved the lighting setups. There's a high key one. The lighting setups as what do they call them? Sub scenes, is it?
Indeed, yeah.
Yeah. So that's just to get you started. So you can load one of these up and say, how is that doing that? What is it? What is being used in that? And so, I also think, a lot of these things, a lot of it is, I want people who don't know these things to learn from them.
Right.
And be able to do it themselves and create their own lights and stuff like that, So should we move on to the next one, Jay?
Let's do that, yes. This was Rembrandt lighting. Awesome.
Okay, we'll go on to high key, do something different.
Let's do high key. While this loads, Yoshi wants to know, is there a way to bring your Poser 8 series of Render Studio into Daz Studio? I'm guessing
Not
the
that I
answer
know of.
is probably no.
No, I would say however the lighting system is programmed in Poser, I don't think it's in any way compatible with Daz Studio.
And Tux completely appreciates the teaching elements in the lights, and I do too. It's really nice to get you to understand how do these effects come to be, why do they happen, and that then answers the age-old question: why does this render look much better than my render? Because I've spent 4 hours on one picture and mine looks mediocre, whereas somebody else's who spent 20 minutes on it looks fantastic. So why does that happen? How do these little bits and pieces come to life? So super appreciated.
Sometimes it takes me 4 hours.
It takes us all 4 hours, doesn't it?
These ones, because I'm using the same pose, same clothes, and same hair, it was easier. Finding the pose, finding the hair, finding the clothes, all takes time as well. But I'd say each one of these took me about half an hour to set up.
Mm-hmm.
But it was easier because I was using the same character, same pose, and everything. So I wouldn't be doing that generally, but sometimes they take half an hour to set up, and sometimes they take 4 hours. It's
depends,
really depends.
Doesn't it?
Yeah, it depends where your satisfaction level goes to, I suppose. Did we mention it that I'm using a pose by Zedicus?
We didn't know. That's true. Poses were not included in the Warrior bundle. Good point.
This is the Z Nordic Beauty Shape and Pose Mega Set, and it's pose number 8. Which is a nice pose. He does great poses.
Doesn't he?
He does. Just great action poses. I've used them lots. Okay, so this one, I'd say out of them all, was the hardest for me to set up. It was more trial and error. The basis of this is the let's go to the render settings here. Environment is the environment map. Now, it's not an HDR map. All as it is, and I'll show you, is it's just a white image.
So this isn't really, this is nothing special. This is a JPEG, PNG.
It's a JPEG 1920 by 1080.
And it's pure white.
It could be a square 500 by 500. I don't think it matters because there's no information in it. So it's not going to pixelate or anything. So the basis of it is that. So if we were to take everything out of this, take the promo, that bugs me that when they all light up like that. So that's without the promo code. Why is that not opening?
Yes, why is that not opening? I had something similar the other day. It just wasn't.
That's opening. That's weird, isn't it?
Do you know, funny, I had the same thing the other day.
Is that one open? Is that one open?
No.
Oh, there it goes again. That one's open. Okay, turn that rim light off. Now it's opening. Turn that rim light off. And we have there should be another light there. Rim light, go, this one.
Do you know, if you want to
spotlight.
If you ever want to turn off something that's parented or in a group, you can just control click the eyeball icon, and that'll make everything invisible underneath it.
Oh, I didn't know that. Okay, control click.
Yeah, control click, or like on the figure, for example. If you click the eyeball
I never know.
on the figure, then only the figure goes away, but the clothing stays there. But if you control click on the eyeball, then everything goes away.
I never knew what this little check mark here meant.
That is, you make it unselectable in the scene. So if you have a set.
Oh, so you can't click on it in the scene and accidentally move it. Yeah.
like happened to us 1,000 times. You have a scene and you have a figure, and you think, I'd only ever want to pose the figure and never the scene. Then you can just click that, and then it's unselectable in the scene.
Okay, now that's all the lights turned off.
So that's just white, basically, like
so
white backdrop.
That's just a white JPEG as the environment map. So that's still a high key image, but it's very, very flat.
You know, all the good bits have disappeared. So this is basically just a render of in front of a transparent background with just white flood filled in Photoshop. And this is exactly sometimes the problem when you compare that to the image that we've seen with the lights. All the magic has gone off the image. So these shoulder pads no longer look like metal, because there's no separation that shines kind of from the back. There's no separation really on the back of the head. There's also, the character literally just stops here as if it was flood filled in, and this looks like a cheap render now. And this has happened to us all, that we've come up with that, and you think, hey, I can't really tell what's wrong, but if I compare that to somebody else's render, I like theirs better, and I really can't tell what the problem is. But these are the things to look out for, and this is why I appreciate you taking us through this.
I've always believed, Jay, ever since I started doing lighting products, that, and it harks back again to when I was a photographer. It's similar to the old photography saying, it's not the camera that takes the picture, it's the photographer.
Indeed, yes.
Now, with lighting, you know, it's not Daz Studio that makes the image, that makes the great image. It's the user that makes the great image. And it's easy to load up a Genesis figure, dress him or her up, and stick in a JPEG in the environment map, white JPEG, and get something like this. This is so simple to do, but it doesn't do anything. It's not a great render. You know, it doesn't have any magic. It doesn't have any pop. It doesn't have any realism or anything like that. So, you know, when we start looking at what we're going to put it back into it, that is really where the magic happens. And so we'll start putting them back in and taking a look at them. Yeah.
Let's do it. I remember it's exactly like that with when the digital cameras kept getting better and better. I remember I bought a Canon EOS 1DS, the Mark 1, the first one that came out, and it was £4,000 back then, just the body, no lenses. And it was I was reading about it on the forums, and one of us was complaining, hey, this camera is so expensive, yet it doesn't take good pictures. And a pro, much like you, came back with the answer and said, do you know what? This camera in the hands of my 3-year-old daughter would produce absolute crap. That is true. But if you know what you're doing, it really isn't the camera that takes the picture. It is what you do with it to take the picture. And I thought this rings so true. It's exactly what you were saying.
Many of us now are much better photographers than we would have been without phones. So anyway, you know, we're all, you know, we all have a chance to be a photographer now.
Indeed,
and take great photographs, you know. I was just looking there at something. I put a reminder on my notes there, is to check the tone mapping of the renders that we're looking at here. I noticed here that I've turned the burn highlights down.
Oh yeah.
It's usually 0.250. Now you might not see any difference with the other lights on, actually. And I've also adjusted the crush blacks. So I've given it more contrast. It would have originally been 0.2, I think.
If you don't remember, if you can always alt-click on any of these sliders to bring them back to default.
Right, that's right. I know that one. But that's a lot flatter now. This is still looking at the raw image without the lights in. And if I undo that back, there's that little edge of contrast that's come into it now.
Yes, it's almost like magic. That's interesting. 0.5. How interesting.
So where were we? Lights.
Yes.
Okay, so let's have a look at the main light, which is the soft spot there. Okay, so this is what is really brightening her up now. And you can start to see the metal is starting to look like metal. You're starting to see the highlights in the skin, and a little bit more, as was taught about what they call in photography modeling, which is the shape. See, like under the chin, around the nose, in the eye sockets. It's starting to pop more, and it's softer as well.
You call that modeling? Interesting.
It's called in photography. It's called modeling.
What does that describe again?
So, for example, a single spotlight directly in front, like a flash on a camera, directly in front of a subject, is going to give almost zero modeling. You're not going to get any shadow detail, like one side of the face or in the eye sockets or on the nose or anything like that. But if you turn that spotlight 45 degrees and point it at the figure, you're going to start to get the shadows. That's what they call modeling in photography.
Gotcha. Interesting. How exciting.
Yeah. So
show us where that light was that you've just enabled, like from the perspective view.
Hard to see with the white background.
Yes.
But it's
there
here.
It is, yeah.
Let's see.
And it's coming literally from the side, doesn't it?
If I put it into texture shade.
Yes, that should work. That'll work.
Yeah. Take a second. Yeah, there we go.
Yes, that's what it looks like.
Yeah. So it's got quite a wide spread angle, and the beam exponent is at 8. So I think this bit here is pretty much the beam exponent. So there's the main concentration of the light is there, and it's spreading out with the spread angle around here. So that's giving you, a very soft light. It's also a cylinder.
Right. Okay.
Yeah, which is set at, which is quite high. If we look at the render emitter, can we see that?
Not in Ira, you will be.
Oh, you can see that in Ira, can you? Whether we'll see it or not, I don't know.
Tux wants you to look through that light quickly, just with when you select it up there in the perspective view. If you look through that light,
there you go. It's pretty much bang on her head.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Do you use that sometimes, that you look through light and then make adjustments?
Very, very, very rarely. I think I've been using these lights for so long now that it's not something that I actually would do very often. It would be more if I was having a problem and I couldn't work out what it was. Like
for fault finding, why is that light not shining where I think it should come out?
Why am I not seeing that light the way I'm expecting to see it, So that's basically, it's a very wide, soft spotlight. And with the white JPEG on the dome, it's killing the shadows. I mean, if we were to take that, this will make a fool of me now and it won't work. If we were to take that down to 0, now you can see the shadows the light is actually casting.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's funny, isn't it? It's because it was there already, but now without the white background, you see, well, this is just the light working. This is just isolating the light, and that's what it's doing. So yeah, nice.
Yeah. So
I like that it works both with the black as well as the white. So now with the white, we get a little bit of extra ambience from the back as well.
I would actually, if I was using that without the white background, I would actually turn that light a little bit to join up the shadow on the nose with the cheek and give it more of a Rembrandt look. Even though this doesn't look too bad, but those kind of things there bug me,
Once you know what to look for, it drives you crazy when you see things that go in that direction, stuff to avoid.
Yeah. So now, I did a few tricks with the promo cove, and I don't know why it works, but it works. I wanted this very light, almost. I don't know whether you can see it on your displays.
I can, yes, absolutely.
It's kind of a very light, cloudy effect, but it's not that prominent. And it took me a while to. I'm in the wrong tab. That's why it's not working. I don't usually have the shaping tab there. I don't use the shaping tab. So yeah, I put the background, which is basically
one of those.
Think it's this one. Just a blurry blue background. May not be the blue one. Actually, it's a brown one. But they're all the same. They're just different colors.
Just different color.
Yeah, I put it in the base color, and it wasn't working. And I decided, what if I put it in the emission color?
Oh yeah.
So if I turn that off, see that's now it's still in the base color, but I'm not seeing anything.
Indeed.
So I thought, what if I put it in the emission color, and it worked. So I think also you could make it darker by turning the emission color down, maybe. Yeah. So that was the little trick I did with the cove. I've never done that before. That was just totally just see what happens, which is often the case. It's, what if I plug it in here,
what you got to do sometimes.
Yeah. And then again, we have 2 rim lights this time. One on the left and one on the right, because I wanted it to feel like the light was coming from all around.
Mm-hmm. And now I can see it. It's here as well as there. So now it's basically you're highlighting the figure on the like from the back a little bit, so you get the definition of the hair. You get the arms. You get all these little things that when they're not there, you're really missing it. It's like film music. When you don't have the soundtrack in your movie, you think there's something missing. When it's there, you barely notice it because it feels complete.
Yeah, exactly. So the rim lights are colored in this.
Ah, yes.
So I guess it's kind of a sun type of color. I mean, you could. I didn't know you could do this the other day. You drag that onto there to save it. Yes. I did not know that.
It is so helpful to have. The Windows color picker is one of the worst I've used, but this is one good feature, yes.
Yeah, I always noticed that, it would always go to here or something. And it used to bug me. How do I fill these other ones in? But I mean, you could use any color,
I totally agree,
really
Bob. It is 100% trial and error. It is kind of cool.
It is. You can see the purple there now, but I just like that. I think it's nice. If we look, can we see that in the perspective view? Yeah, there's the 2 rim lights. So,
right, that's where they're from. One is there.
There's the other one. There's the other one.
So fairly close together.
They're quite high up.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
and wide as well, wide beam. So interesting to see. You catch all of what you want then. That's nice.
I wanted it to feel like it was coming from the top. I mean, I could have brought them lower down, and it would have maybe enveloped her around the edges more. But I did want it to feel like it was coming from the top. And there it is in the same portrait.
Yes, in the
camera that we have, which works perfectly well. I prefer the Rembrandt one.
Mm-hmm, me too.
Now there are no there's no catchlight light in this one. Didn't need it
because you see some definition from that light. Indeed.
I wonder if that's the JPEG or is it the soft spotlight?
It probably is. Do you know what? That's probably what it is.
Turn the soft spotlight off and let's see.
I have a feeling it's the Cove. The HDRI.
Yeah,
because she still has it.
She has something there, but it's not the same thing.
Right, that's true.
Yeah, so it is being added by the spotlight. So you don't need to use a catch light in this, you know. So that's basic. What's it called? High key lighting.
High key lighting, indeed. Say it with me. High key lighting.
Now this didn't work at all in full length because there's no shadow detail on the.
Yeah, she hovers.
Ground.
It looks like transparent render, and I'm putting a picture behind it.
Yeah,
and
just
now it looks
plopped
terrible.
on. Yeah. But it does look good in the mid-length camera. So we stick with that one for that. Don't know what's going on here. There we go. So that's the high key lighting. Which isn't that difficult to do. I mean, take out the rim lights and the promo cove, and all it is the JPEG in the environment and the one soft spotlight here.
Indeed, yeah.
You know, that's all. That's all it is. The rim lights. Just add something to separate it more from the background, I think.
Yes, and I think that's important. It's just really important to do that, especially for the hair and for the arm here.
And the promo cove basically gives it a background. And with it being high key, you don't want something that's very detailed. At all, really, you know. Now, if we look at the render settings there, I was playing around with the tone mapping.
Oh, yes.
If we were to bring that, the burn highlights back up to its default 0.250.
Or
now, you see,
on the slider.
Yeah. I'm just so used to doing it this way, Jay.
At least you remember the values. I'm bad at remembering values. Like, what was that before? And I totally forgot it.
Maybe because I didn't know the alt-click. Well, actually, I did know the alt-click. It was the control-click one I didn't know. Now, you can see the highlights are really burnt out.
Yes, this is now burning her out. Exactly, yes.
And a lot of people don't actually use the tone mapping. I mean, I don't use a lot of it. I only use the burn highlights and the crush blacks, really. I never use the exposure value, shutter speed, which I know a lot of people do. But I find the crush blacks and the burn highlights very, very. I mean, the armor is completely burnt out on the shoulder pads.
And also, this is another one of those things that once you've developed the eye for what burnt out detail looks like, you spot it everywhere. Like, this doesn't look burnt out at all. This is. So in television, we had a machine that's called a waveform monitor and a vectorscope. You use them side by side, and it shows you essentially an electronic representation of the signal. It's a little bit like the histogram in Photoshop, but for moving images. And you always keep an eye on what my video levels are. And there's the black levels and the white levels. And when they go out of a certain, like in the whites are 0.7 volts, they mustn't go above that in PAL and NTSC. But if they were, then you'd risk interference with analog recording equipment, like, back in the day. But when you do that, there comes a point where white eventually clips. So you have all your detail at the top, and when you push that above a certain point, it just gets clipped, and so everything above it gets removed. All the detail there gets removed, and this is exactly what you've just had here on the metal on her shoulder pad and in her face. And when that happens, you remove the detail, and there's literally nothing you can see or do about it. You can't bring that back once it's gone. And this is why that is such an important thing to adjust burn highlights and bring that back and prevent that from burning out and turning into a crap render.
It's much easier to brighten shadows. It's almost impossible to bring back detail into burnt out highlights.
I couldn't agree more. Yeah, exactly.
And in photography, the white point, is that what they call it in photography? White balance.
White balance, indeed, yeah.
You have a medium or an 18% gray card.
Right.
And you point the exposure meter at that, and that will set the white balance for you. So it would be, for example, it'd be mid-gray, so it'd be around here somewhere. Now, that mid-gray is the same value as grass in an overcast sky, grass. So if you don't have a gray card and you're outdoors and you want to get the right white balance so you don't get burnt out highlights in your photographs, you basically set your exposure by pointing the camera at the grass and getting the exposure dial or needle, whatever you're using, to 0, however it's calibrated, to grass. And that's exactly the same as medium gray, 18% gray.
Cool tip. Look at that. I love tips like that, because you think analog light meter, my camera doesn't have an exposure meter, but I need to, I need to have a value here. How am I going to photograph this so that it doesn't look bad? Great.
Okay, say I was photographing you outdoors, Jay, with a Nikon digital camera on an overcast day. I get my camera, I point it at the grass, I press the shutter button down halfway, which locks my exposure, we'll say, and then I hold it there and I point it at your face, and then I click, take the photograph. It should be perfectly exposed. We
rely too much on the built-in meters, It's good to know these basics. There's a tip. I don't think you'll remember this. I don't exactly remember this. It was on a clear day at f/16. Your shutter speed should be 1 over the ISO of your film. Did you know that one?
I've heard that. I've heard that.
I've never tried it, but this is what's supposed to work. On a clear day at f/16, your exposure should be 1 over the ISO of the film. So 400 ISO film would be a 400th of a second. Interesting, isn't it? 100 ISO
Nowadays,
film.
with digital cameras, we can just bracket the exposures and take 5 different pictures at the same time with 5 different exposures.
Yes.
And one of them's going to be right, Okay, shall we move on?
Let's move on. Yes, we have about half an hour. We don't want to overrun. Yes.
Oh God.
But this is what we like. I mean, you can stick us in front of a TV.
Okay, well, the next 2 should be fairly quick. I'll go with the HDRI one because that is quick.
Yes, let's do that
first.
So HDRI, that was the 3rd iteration of the Render Studio, right? That is the one that gives you many of these effects that we discussed, but makes them available through the Sky Dome, essentially, right?
Sorry, you've lost me there, Jay. Are we talking about the one we've just done, or this one coming up?
The coming up, the Render Studio 3.
No, this is a completely customized one. I haven't used anything from Render Studio in this. This is just straight new.
Oh, like
I've used a HDRI from Polyhaven.com.
Custom one. Gotcha.
And this is the raw image without anything on it.
Mm-hmm.
So it's basically it's called Mossy Forest. I did send you the link. I don't know whether the guys have it.
They do. Brian is going to post it in a minute. Thanks, Brian.
So basically, what we have here is a very, very, very busy image. She's not very well lit. The background is really busy, but it is still giving us the light of the forest around. But for me, it's not what I would want. So the first thing I would do is I would blur the background. So most people will most probably know how to do this. Where am I? Everything's moved around since we've been doing this show. Camera, that's what I'm looking for. Cameras. There we go. So we turn depth of field on, right? So now we get some really nice bokeh. Bokeh is these different shaded circles. So where the highlights in the HDRI here, these blobs of white, have now turned into pretty little discs.
Very cool. We haven't changed the lighting at all. This is just depth of field.
Just use depth of field. And the only other thing I did with this is I used a wide spotlight. And when I turn that on,
yeah.
Now, looking at it now, it looks a tiny bit too bright for me. My lights are over here now. I would turn it down slightly, maybe. See how that looks? Yeah, that's better. Maybe a bit more. And it's tinted a very, very light green, like the background.
It's like to pick up the color of the HDRI, right? We're in a forest.
Yeah, yeah. That makes it look more natural. So that's a quick one for you. So you got a very busy background, which is poorly lit when you load your HDRI. Now the HDRI is, let's see, what have we got here? I turned the intensity up to 2. The default would have been 1.
A bit dark, yeah.
So that's way too dark. But when I turn it up to 2, it blows out the highlights in the HDRI in the background.
Right, yes.
So we don't want that. So the depth of field is taking care of that by making the pretty little discs.
Yes, makes it pretty indeed.
Yeah, and the tone mapping, the burn highlights, is turned down to 0. So we put that wide spotlight back on. So if I put that back at its default, 0.25, see the highlights now in the background are way burnt out.
Yes, no, exactly. That looks broken now. When you look at it, there's something just missing.
Yeah.
Like especially
it's
behind
it's disturbing. Yeah,
that's the one. Disturbing. Yes.
Yeah. So turn it down. Did I press the right keys there? Yes. And now nothing is pure white there in those highlights. So. Yeah,
that is such an easy tip. That is such an easy tip to avoid bad-looking renders like that. This is so cool. So HDRI.
That's one light.
One light. And if you take that away, then we see all these ugly things like under her eyes. We get these shadows here. And this is all, the moment you fill that in a little bit, it's just, it's that magic that it needs.
I think by the looks of it, that light is extremely wide. Yes, the spread angle is 180, which is right at the top end of the spectrum. So yeah, and basically, it's just a case of getting the luminous flux right, adding a couple of zeros till you get it close, and adjusting the intensity to fine tune it. It's a rectangular light.
And it's 100 by 100, so it's fairly large.
100 by 100, yeah. So it's a big rectangle. So it's basically like a giant white, slightly green sheet to one side of her.
Yeah.
So we'll move on to the next one quickly, shall we?
I like the trick of looking at the HDRI and just saying, hey, where are we? And if the HDRI is kind of greenish, you'd imagine, there'd be light shining through the leaves of a forest. So pick that up in that light, just everything kind of working together. It's nice. It sells the illusion, absolutely.
Yeah, if I wanted to have a very, very, very quick solution for a render, this is kind of the thing I would do. And might crop up in a promo render of mine sometime soon. I don't know. So should we move on to the next one?
Yes, let's do that.
Okay. Time is flying.
It always does. We have 25 minutes, so that's kind of cool.
Okay. Well, this one I'm going to show. One of the things I'm going to show is using a plane. A geometry plane as a reflector.
Oh,
to lighten up shadows.
Like a bounce, like a proper photographic bounce. Nice.
Yeah. Same scene, only this time it's full length.
Same HDRI? Are we outdoors?
No, it's no. It's not. It's not HDRI. This one. It'd be more similar to the first one we looked at, but not Rembrandt.
Oh, okay.
So basically what we have is we have a soft key light. If we turn that off and see what it's doing. I don't think there's an HDRI. There could be actually an HDRI on this. And let's have a look. Yes, there is. There is an HDRI.
Oh, yeah.
From my Ultra I-Ray Ambience pack, which is one I created myself, which is a window light.
Ah, a window. I was wondering what is that shape? It's a window.
Yeah,
yes.
It's a window. Yeah. So we got a rim light or two going on there. Yeah. Let's turn that. There we go again.
Patrick likes your scene loading times, by the way. So no 5-minute wait times before the character comes in. It literally
This
takes
is my
seconds.
publishing build of Daz Studio. I have nothing in it. I don't have loads of morphs for the Genesis figures or anything like that. And it's basically what I use to build my characters in. And when I'm building the characters, the only morphs that are loaded, apart from the default ones that come with the Genesis figure, would be the morphs that I've added for the figure, for the character. And then we have a plane here and a background light. So take all that out. Now, what is still light? Oh, it'd be the HDRI that is lighting.
Oh yes, of course. That'll do a bit of light.
Yeah. Okay, so that's basically the HDRI. So the soft key light there. It's not used to my lights being over here. It's quite a wide beam on it, so it's very soft. The beam exponent is at its minimum. I think that's its minimum one, isn't it? Yeah. It's a rectangle again. I tend to stick with rectangles because I do like softbox light. And the color temperature is set to 10,000 Kelvin, which is very blue. Mm-hmm. The actual character's texture is quite red. So, in order to compensate for that, I think I bumped that up. If it was set back to 6,500, that's actually quite nice. It's warm. I like that. Well, let's put it back to where it was anyway. Okay, so
you like it
again.
blue. That's cool. That's okay.
Again, we have the rim lights. These are quite low rim lights, so they're lighting pretty much right down the side of the figure. Mm-hmm. This one is anyway. Instead of just the hair, they're not really hair lights. They're actually
full body
rim lights, and that's just basically the position of them.
Mm-hmm.
Again, using the controller on the X rotate to bring it down, to lower it. So you can also use the translate as well on the controller. It will move it away from the head of the figure, but it doesn't matter as long as you get the effect you're looking for. Mm-hmm. And then the second rim light, which looks like a different color actually, is actually pretty much only lighting her hair on that side.
That's on the right? Is that what we see?
Yeah. Let's have a look.
Yes, let's have a look at the position of the lights.
Yeah.
It's so nice that you can take us through all this.
Sorry.
It's so nice you take us through all this. This is the kind of in-depth stuff that's really, really difficult / impossible to come by. Like, where are the lights? Why are they there? What are they doing? This is what happens when they're not there. So I love having you here, Colm. Really nice.
Thank you, Jay. I love being here. I could have gone with, done a very basic, this is a 3-point light setup. But I think the audience we have are a little bit more advanced. I didn't want to, kind of just, teach them how to suck eggs, basically, The other thing is we have background light. We've discussed them before. That's a wider beam background light. I've turned up. Oh, no, it's not. Oh, I tell a lie. It's not that wide a beam. Oh, no, look at the wrong light. It is a wide beam.
It is a wide one.
Fairly wide beam, yeah. Now, the other thing is I wanted to lighten up these shadows here along her right. So I added a geometric plane here. I'll show you that now. So now the shadows are quite a bit lighter. You see that more maybe in the head and shoulder camera.
Yeah, slightly closer up.
Yeah, so if we turn it off again. Okay, much darker.
And you
shadows.
see literally
now,
this bit here that's just black. And the moment you put that plane in, it just gets that little bit of...
Now, I'll show you that plane. There it is.
And the plane, that's not emitting light, right? That is just bouncing around whatever is already in the room.
I'll take it out and load it in again. I'll create another one. What did I just do? I just parented some... Undo. I just accidentally parented something else. Okay, I'll take that out and we'll create a new one. Create new primitive plane X positive. It's 10 meters. It's fairly big.
X positive just means the plane doesn't come in flat like this. That'd be Y positive. It means it comes in like this.
And I don't know, it might be something to do with the normals as well. I don't know. But
right, yes, they only, yes, good point.
Now, obviously, that's coming right in the center of her, you know, so we need to select a plane, which is now plane 2. And then we're going to we'll drop it to the floor, Control D.
Yes.
Okay. And then just X translator. Why is it not moving?
Why is it not moving? Interesting.
I have it selected.
Put the universal manipulator on and then see where the x-axis is. The one next to that.
This one?
The next one. That one.
That one.
And then...
And how do I see where the x-axis is?
Control F. And then you should just see the plane. And there it is. Yeah, so X translate should really do that. There we go. Okay. That didn't make sense.
Okay, that's weird, isn't it? So basically, I move it back. Well, camera, we in full length. Yeah, I move it back until I get the effect that I want. That X translate has not moved.
Why?
That's bizarre, isn't it?
Do you want to buy? It's because it's Z translate, maybe. Let's go back to the perspective view and move Z translate just out of curiosity.
No, that's not working either.
What? Why?
I wonder if it moved this one. No,
it's locked. Actually, Yoshi gets 100 points.
How do I unlock it?
Is it locked down? I don't see it. I see the slider moving, so I don't know why.
Anyway, you know what I'm trying to do.
Yeah.
So if we move...
do you know what? No, it makes perfect sense. I think absolutely CubeWatt is completely right. You know what?
I'm in camera.
You're on the camera tab. That's right.
Duh.
You know, I don't actually tend to use them. I tend to only use parameters for anything, lights, cameras, everything.
Yeah.
That makes perfect sense.
So if we bring that real close to her, right? So, well length camera.
Well
okay,
done,
we don't want it in the scene anyway. But now she's completely almost flat lit now. So we move it out of the way.
Now it works. Ha ha ha.
Yeah. Well, we'll do if we select the right thing. So it's basically just a case of positioning it for what we're doing now on the X translate. I mean, you could Y rotate it and things like that for different. You could have it underneath to lighten shadows underneath her eyes, or if it was a portrait render or something like that. You can also change the intensity of it by just turning down.
Oh, of course.
Yeah.
Make a different color. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, you could make it a different color too. You could
Yeah.
Crazy.
That's a great idea. And then
Yeah.
look at that. This is a great way to show up what is the light that is bouncing back, because that now comes back in super pink. That's the amount of light that comes back. So I've seen so many discussions about, oh, maybe I need a light here, I need a light there. Maybe you don't need another light at all. Maybe you just need something that reflects whatever you already have into the position that you want it. Like the classic example, outdoor model photography, and you think we have a massive bright light source, and you could have your flashlights to brighten things up, but in order to fill in the lights, you always get the assistant who has that massive reflector and who just goes and fills in the shadows on the other side. And this is the same principle.
I'm just playing here now. Let's see.
That is such a cool tip. Just use a plane, bounce it all back.
Now, I was trying to get a nice blue light on the other side. I'd have to play with it more. I thought maybe we could do some kind of cyberpunk lighting.
Do you know, I'm looking at the boots, and they picked that up. They picked that up quite nicely.
There must be metallicity on the boots or something like that.
That could be.
Yeah, I don't think that's working. But yeah, so that is just using a geometric plane to bounce the light from back at the figure, and again, like I was saying, if it was a portrait, I won't demonstrate it, but if it was a portrait render and she had, her eyes were too dark in the shadow areas, you could put the plane below her breast or something, a smaller plane, which would bounce the light in the scene up into her face more,
Mm-hmm.
So that's pretty much it, really. That's 4 different types of lighting.
100 different
with
types of tips.
the same setup, the same pose, same backdrop, same clothing and hair. 4 different ways of doing it, really.
And drastically different results, time and time again. Absolutely.
Yeah. I could go on all night.
Wouldn't that be cool? We were, that's just so that this, guys. When Colm and I have a little check-in, like just a discussion about what we're going to do next, we sit there for 2 hours straight, and it doesn't get boring. We just keep coming up with new, exciting ideas. What was it that we were discussing last time? We could have a look at how you put tattoos and face paint with substance painter on characters. That's something else we're planning. There's how to use skin textures using Skin Builder, but making it look like not Skin Builder, with all those types of Photoshop tricks that we can throw other things on the textures. There were so many things. What else were we discussing?
Oh, there was all sorts of things.
Thankfully, I made some notes.
We're going to do another lighting one as well. Lighting from scratch, like for
scratch.
We've talked about that, from the perspective of not knowing at all what you're doing with lighting. I expect most people in the audience tonight do have a good grasp of lighting, and I'm not trying to teach them how to light anything. I'm just trying to show them how I do it, but we were looking at doing one from scratch, basically. This is a spotlight. This is your friend.
This is your friend. Get comfortable with it. You can do millions of things with it.
Yeah, you can use it as a projector, all sorts of things.
Right.
Projecting shapes and things.
Buzz was asking a good question. If you want to get into Render Studio, which product would you recommend you start with? Short of picking all of them up, there are so many.
I would start with Render Studio, the original one, which is called.
Yes, what's it called? It doesn't.
Render Studio It's called Render Studio iRay.
Right, because it was the iRay version. Because the previous ones were poser versions. Yes.
I have it here. I think I got them all here. I think.
You've made them.
let's see. That's not me. There, that one. Now it kind of looks a little bit, it is old now, but it's still very valid. Daz Studio still uses the same lights. And look at that. That's using projectors. That's very cool.
That is so cool.
And you know,
Michael, how you doing?
Here we have the different colored rim lights, and you know, that's great for like cyberpunk look and stuff like that, you know.
It is actually worth it as well. This I just saw the retail price, $50. That sounds expensive for a lighting product, but the amount of stuff you have in there is really setting you up for literally hundreds of good looking.
Well, it's on sale at the moment for $24.98.
Pick it up. PA coupon, and then, if you have it.
Render Studio 2 focuses. Its main focus is volumetrics. So it's your light beams. You know?
The ones like these things that are visible, like the ones. If you go to the previous picture, it's this thing that. Like these things, these are, some people also call them God rays.
God rays, yeah.
Game engines sometimes make use of it if you're driving a car, or if you're like in Subnautica. The classic is always you drive around in your little sea moth, and you have these two cones of light that shine into the water. Technically, that's geometry that lights up and that appears to light the way. I mean, in game engines, it's a bit different because you have the geometry showing the cone, but you also then have something else that makes the light. And then in Daz Studio, sometimes we have to think outside the box as well. So you do see these things literally in iRay as they come out. And this is one of those products, there's just so much in it that you can play with, and you just get great effects out of it.
Yeah, you know, like a misty kind of scene, you know, it also has a high key environment in it. And these are your spotlight presets. There's your classic Rembrandt.
She looks like Rembrandt as well.
Very cool. I think I nicked that from a Rembrandt image, actually.
And Yoshi was asking.
I love that one.
Me too, actually. That was a good one. Yoshi was asking, and I just saw it there in the promo. Which one comes with the Infinity Cove? I
think now. I'm almost sure they all do.
I thought so too, because I've seen presets in 2 that you can apply, because they're just shaders, you can apply them on the Infinity Cove in 1 and vice versa. So they kind of complement one another. So that's nice.
All the textures should load from each version onto any Infinity Cove. Although on the first version of Render Studio iRay, you will have to load it through the Surface tab, because I didn't know what I was doing at the time.
I like it. Keeps it very universal. Shaders are I like shaders versus material presets. My personal preference. Look at that. The amount of stuff you get with that. It's really worth just looking through the promos and just getting.
This is my favorite. Monochrome is my favorite. As I told you, I'm very much into old black and white photography, you know.
And then this is the other thing, we didn't actually touch on this in all the.
There's your Rembrandt lighting.
Yeah, in all the Render Studio products, you also get one-click options for render settings. So you get something that you can say, make me render fast, make it extremely beautiful, but take as long as you like. Add some what's it called? Brain stopped. Yes, that's the one. Bloom. Add bloom or remove it. So. Those things are also part of Render Studio.
Something I did with these mesh lights in monochrome was I actually built them like lights.
That's cute.
And that actually makes a difference, you know. It does affect the way the light...
Like the softbox, right? That is really what it looks like.
Yeah. So, you know, I mean, there's a lot in each one. There's even a 17-page user guide.
Look at that.
It's years since I've looked at these, to be honest. I mean, the promos.
What I love about products like that is that you go and you buy it, you try something out, and it inspires you. So this is something I get with video games as well. Sometimes it's expensive stuff to buy, but really it's priceless if it inspires you to make better stuff. If it inspires you to go off and sit there and say, do you know what, I'm going to spend 3 hours just tweaking my one image that I'm doing here. I mean, we've all been there, that we've been a little bit maybe disillusioned, and I'm thinking, I don't know what else to do because I'm uninspired. I'm overworked and uninspired. And these types of products really make you want to get off your ass and go, hey, I can't get enough of this. I'd like to pick up another tip, another trick, something that I haven't tried before, and then come up with a picture that you think, wow, I'm proud of that. And this is what these products do, and this is why I like using them.
Sometimes it's good to play around with a render for hours and see what you can get, by just trying different things and have fun doing it,
right,
as opposed to, getting frustrated because you're not getting what you want. Actually, you find new ways of doing things and discover, things that you didn't know before just by playing around.
Mm-hmm.
I wish I had more time to play around and just make images for fun, really. I mean, this has been for fun.
Yes. And it was fun having you here, by the way. That was really good. Stop sharing your screen. Stop sharing your screen. I'll bring you back into the true vision, then we're going to say goodbye. Camilla, my goodness, it's really nice to that you could join us. Camilla's been out eating and drinking. This is great. Good to see you. Was
that Camilla who went to dinner tonight?
Yes, absolutely. Camilla went to dinner.
Yeah. She said she most probably couldn't come because she was going out to dinner.
Hello, Camilla.
I hope you enjoyed your dinner, Camilla.
And it's one of those things, Camilla, make if you can, rewatch this. I'll put chapter points up on the Vimeo feed. There were so many exciting tips and tricks that Colm has been sharing with us, and I really appreciate you doing that. It's been fun. It's been really fun. And as I said,
it's been great. Yeah, always is with you, Jay.
Oh, thanks. And we're working on other things. So we are in the process of literally coming up with ideas for other streams, public ones as well as shared working sessions where we just look over one another's shoulders and go, hey, this is what we're doing. We're thinking of doing that on Twitch and just rolling with it. It's another thing. I just wanted to bring this to your attention. It's something that I'm trying to implement, that the Daz Twitch channel, I'd like for it to become something like the Pixologic guys currently do with their ZBrush product, that if we have a group of people who don't mind doing it, just go and stream on it. You can stream to your channel as well as the Daz Twitch. If it's Daz related, great, brings the community together. If you don't mind being watched while you work, this is a great opportunity.
Right, I think that's a great idea,
Let's see where it goes.
It's... I think it would push me to be more, I think I'm a bit of a perfectionist, try to be anyway, but it would push me to be more of a perfectionist as people were looking over my shoulder, But yeah, I'd be up for that. Yeah, definitely.
That is all we have. I'm just looking through the questions that my mods have fished out, and I think we've answered most of them during the course here. So I think we're going to go and say goodbye.
Well, if anybody wants to message me about anything, they can get me on Facebook at Colm Jackson 3D and message me there.
That is a wonderful invitation. Pepper Colm with questions. That's really nice of you, Colm. Thank you so much. Appreciate that.
Very welcome.
Don't forget, Colm's store, most of his store on Daz is on sale right now. If you want to pick up any of his goodies for 50% off, you can. His render...
Up 73% off.
73%. Also, his Renderosity store is on sale. If you find anything on that, take a look at it. And I say goodbye and good night. Thank you so much, Colm.
Thank you. Here. Thank you, everybody. Thank you, Jay. Thank you.
We're gonna roll the credits. Take care, my friends. Bye-bye.
You too.